Hello and welcome back to another video. This time we will do something a bit different. I always want to do more what if scenarios, and that's also why I technically started YouTube. So today we're going to at least do some what if preparations for a new what if scenario that might replace the ongoing shadow piece or what if Luffy was never born once it is actually finished. Because we're slowly but surely approaching the end of this what if scenario. So now let me tell you what if scenario I want to talk about today. I want to call it reverse piece. And you can think about this in many different ways. Because reverse has a lot of... Reverse is pretty, like, it's a simple word. You know what reverse means. It's if you have one thing and then make the opposite of it. So technically that would mean that pirates become the marines, and that would be already a good scenario. What if the pirates are the marines and the marines are the pirates? But then once I started working on that and like made like my ideas of like, oh, what if this happened and then this happened, there came more and more questions. So now I need to talk about this just in the preparation and maybe to get some of your ideas of how to make this a nice and a very interesting what if scenario. So now we know that pirates and marine would switch places because they are basically the opposite of each other. But what about these two factions? The world government and the revolutionaries would technically also switch positions because they are like the opposite sides of each other. They are the same, like on the same coin, the different side, you know, that whole shenanigan stuff. But then there's the whole question that I have. If Dragon and the revolutionaries are the world government, technically speaking, the world would be at peace. At one piece. Because if Dragon is there, basically none of the celestial dragons would be really there to make a whole mess of everybody, and slavery wouldn't really be there. But then it would mean that the whole world government would be a new sort of revolution that wants to overtake the world and make rule the world themselves and establish slavery and all these different things. So basically, if we have the reversed roles of revolutionaries and world government, that would mean instead of Luffy and the others trying to free the people from being slaves and then finally being free once again, it would be them protecting the people, making sure that Imu and the people who are now the revolutionaries can't overthrow the current world government to like do their whole thing and just rule over everybody. It's just like the whole... It's basically a backstory. Like there was one point at a time where everybody was peaceful, when the ancient kingdom was still there, and then there came the revolutionaries, which was our groups of now Imu and the others that have overthrown the current world government to make the new world government where the celestial dragons and everybody reigns. But in this version, the world government is good. The world government is making sure that everybody can live, everybody has a good life. And Imu is there, I don't know what Imu is. If Imu is like this immortal vampire queen king thing, I don't know. They might just control like some people who are the celestial dragons, because the celestial dragons are also like on the sides of the revolutionary. Then they control these people, and all of the cipher poles and these would also be connected to the revolutionaries. So that would mean that Imu controls all of these people, and with them they would try to overthrow the world. But then we come to a different question. Now we talked about pirates, marines, world government and revolutionaries. But what about civilians? Like, just think about what would Vivi be? Vivi was like the princess of Alabasta Kingdom. So technically speaking, would she still be the princess of the Alabasta Kingdom? Because the Alabasta people and like the people who reign over all these kingdoms were assigned by the world government. So technically speaking, it could still be very possible that people like Vivi, Rebecca and all these other princesses, like Shirahoshi, all these people are actually still the princesses and the kings are still the kings of their respective countries. Because what's the opposite of a civilian? It's it's still a civilian, because a civilian is like their thing. It can't just make every civilian into a pirate or something, because these people would just continue on with their normal stuff. And then there's also the question, what would bounty hunters be? Bounty hunters are chasing after pirates to collect the bounties and sell them to the Marines. But the opposite of a bounty hunter would be a pirate that hunts the Marines. But that wouldn't make any sense, because then who would be the bounty hunters? Like, if all the bounty hunters would be pirates hunting Marines, that would mean, for example, Zoro would be a pirate hunting Marines, which would make it impossible for him to join Luffy's crew of like his Marine people. Like, if he has to make his own Marine ship, then Zoro wouldn't be able to join, because he's like a pirate who most likely has a decently high bounty. So bounty hunters would probably need to remain the same for it to make some sort of sense. But now, talking about bounty hunters, there is another faction that is just as confusing, or maybe even more confusing. Have you ever thought about what would the warlords be if there was this reversed world? I'll give you a second here. The warlords are confusing. The warlords are pirates that are going to work together with the world government and the Marines to capture our other pirates. Meaning, if you reverse that, it would mean that all the warlords, Moria, Buggy, Law, Weevil, Mihawk, Boa Hancock, Crocodile, all these peoples were Marines. They were Marines, but they defected from the Marines and became pirates, and these pirates are now hunting the Marines or bringing down the Marines. So there's this thing. But then if you think about in future parts of the scenario again, there is this the abolishment of the warlord system, which would mean that all the warlords that defected from the Marines and became pirates would then, after we are about at this part of like Dressrosa, would join up with the Marines again. But how would that work? So my idea was maybe that the Marines have this like undercover group of strong vice admirals or something, and all of them just got sent out to be undercover pirates and make sure that they control different parts of the seas. And because they are pirates, they can get more intel from other pirates. So it would work like that they are like covert agents for the Marines in that way. But now let me ask you a really important question for this series. Or like, maybe it's not even a series. Should I make this what if scenario, what's going to be called a reverse piece, a full series with separate videos for every single arc, just like I did for What If Luffy Was Never Born, starting from the what's the name, the dawn of the first arcs with like Fusha Village and all these different things. It's not Horizon Dawn, I'm forgetting the name, but that's not important. So should I start from the very first arc and make for every single arc until Wano, or maybe once this thing catches up, we're not even going to be in Wano anymore, just every single arc in one video? Or should I make one singular big video with just the overall basic changes and maybe what that means for the overall story? So that would mean maybe it could be a whole series of different smaller videos where I talk about this what if scenario for every arc, what would probably have changed and how these arcs play out now with this reversed setting. Or I make one single video just going over the basics of everything. So it's up to you. I can make both of them basically. Yeah, I can make both of them if you want to. That would just mean that if I make the full series, it would probably be the long video first and then the whole series, because the full long video would be something like an introduction of telling you all people what you can wait for in the full series to get more details of different scenarios that's going on there. But now let me tell you something that I already thought about, and I thought that would be a pretty good tease for this scenario. This world has different lore. Just think about it. If everybody has the reversed role, who would become the Pirate King? It's not Roger, Roger would be some sort of vice admiral or something. No, Roger would not be an admiral. Roger would not be the fleet admiral. Roger would be kind of like Garp, being the vice admiral that just never wants to get the position of admiral, because that would just be, they would take away too much of his freedom, because he's the kind of vice admiral that sails around different places in the Grand Line, in the New World, in just all of the blues, making sure that everybody is safe and can have fun. He's throwing parties with the people of all the different cities, so he wants to be everywhere and not locked to one place like the admirals are locked to the Marineford base. But now, I already said that Garp and Roger are basically opposites. So in this scenario, Garp would be the Pirate King. And we all know what happened to the Pirate King. The Pirate King got executed. And even if this world is basically at peace and all these things are going on, the Pirate King got executed because they wanted to send a message. Garp is still of his personality that he has a lot of thinking, that we don't know the inner machinations of Garp's mind in the actual story of One Piece right now. So Garp has done a lot of thinking, and it's like, I'm not sure why he's doing the things that he's doing, but he probably has thought about it quite hard. So Garp would probably kind of want to help the Revolutionaries, or I don't know what's going on. So like Garp, now that I think about it, Roger had that sickness. How did he get that sickness, and would Garp get that sickness? But reversing their positions doesn't mean that Garp would get that sickness, which would still mean that Roger has the sickness and might also die from the sickness. So maybe Roger is doing something where he's going to get himself killed, but then there's also the question of Garp is 100% the Pirate King, but is he going to get executed as well? So like, are both Roger and Garp dead? Or is Roger alive and is Garp dead? Or is Roger dead and Garp alive and the Pirate King still lives in this universe? There's a lot to think about here, just like this thing here. So I can already tell you that Blackbeard is gonna be so freaking complicated once we get to Marineford and so on. Because Blackbeard has killed the Yonko Whitebeard to get his devil fruit. But in this scenario, if I had to spot a random position, Whitebeard would be the fleet admiral of the Marines pre-time skip, before he gets killed at what would be the equivalent of Marineford. So now the question is, what would Blackbeard do? Blackbeard kidnapped the son of Goldie Roger to bring him to the Marines, because he was a warlord in the actual scenario, to make himself known, to get Whitebeard to go there and get Ace killed and Whitebeard killed to get Whitebeard's devil fruit. So would Blackbeard, the most sense for him would still be to kidnap Ace if Ace has the connection to Whitebeard. Because what if Roger is actually alive? So would Ace and Roger have a good relationship, or would they still be not really on good terms and Ace would still hang on to Whitebeard? Or maybe because like Blackbeard kidnapped the son of the Pirate King. The son of the Pirate King is Dragon, and Dragon would be the leader of the world government. So would Blackbeard capture Dragon? Or would Blackbeard capture the grandson of the Pirate King, and that being Luffy? So would Luffy be captured and Blackbeard gave Luffy to Akainu and like the other Yonkos of this universe or something, and that just leads to Luffy being there, and everybody needs to rescue Luffy, and because Ace wants to rescue him because they have like this brother relationship, Whitebeard would join and Whitebeard would then die, and that's how Blackbeard gets the devil fruit and Blackbeard becomes one of the new admirals, or maybe the new fleet admiral. But that's a lot of like the what ifs going crazy already. Like, you see that I'm just spouting nonsense, and there's already these many like threads being spread out that you could potentially build entire stories out of from. There are other theory that I had, what if in this scenario, because one of the Yonkos died, it's still because I didn't think that the personalities wouldn't be reversed, because that wouldn't make any sense. Otherwise we would follow a depressed Luffy that just wants to make everybody suffer and make sure that no one in the world has fun. Though even while that sounds quite interesting because Luffy would commit genocide or something, that's not what we want in this scenario. The question is, what would Blackbeard do? And because everybody has the same personality, Blackbeard still wants to get the devil fruit that Whitebeard has, so he would kind of want to kill Whitebeard. But I also had the idea, what if Akainu wanted to kill Sengoku, and then Akainu had both the Magma Devil Fruit and the Buddha Devil Fruit? But that's insane thinking, and I think the better scenario is if Blackbeard still goes after Whitebeard. But now let me go with something else. I just remembered this actually. So what I actually, you know, I talked about all these different things, about the civilians, the princesses, the bounty hunters, marines, pirates, world government, revolutionaries, and so on and so forward. But what about people like the Germa? What are the Germa doing in a world that is reversed? The Germa are like just villains. They are not pirates because they are still... Are they affiliated to the world government? I'm not sure about that right now. But they are kind of like their own kingdom and everything. So would they be pirates or would they be actual heroes? But actual heroes wouldn't act like that, and that would mean that Sanji never left them. So, and because their personalities didn't change, they wouldn't really change that much. So if I had to choose some factions, like civilians and all of the royalty wouldn't change, bounty hunters wouldn't change, and people like Germa wouldn't change, but that's about it. And overall, it would be basically a completely different story compared to what we have in the canon story, because everything is so different. And how even would this happen? How would the revolutionaries with Imu try to overthrow the current world government led by Dragon? And how would everything with Roger, Whitebeard, Garp play out, and Sengoku? And what would Luffy do with his devil fruit? So there's many different things that we need to think about to make this what if scenario work, and I'm preparing everything for this right now. And this is just my preparation video where I am going to talk about, I just want to talk with you about what I have prepared for this what if scenario and what you can await for in the future. So please look forward to that. And if you have not yet done that, why don't hit that subscribe button? I have seen some increases in different numbers here and there for my analytics, and I'm really happy about that. But the one thing that hasn't changed that much yet is my subscriber count. And it would be really cool to increase that numbers to make myself like a bit more happy maybe. But that's it for today. So I wish that all of you stay happy, healthy, and cultured. But most importantly, you also need to stay hot. So this has been Pyro Prima with the first part of What If preparations of Reverse Peace. So look forward to this What If scenario and also to the next part of Shadow Peace on Monday. Until then, take care. Pyro out.